I like the live as y'all are coming in. Happy Thursday morning, everybody. We're going to get started in a moment. Like the live as y'all are coming in. Shout yourselves out. Tell me your locations as you come in. Tell me your locations as you come in. Let me see. We are talking today about CEO pay. Is it too high? Doesn't make sense the CEOs get paid what they get paid while you have workers for the same companies that someone may be a CEO of struggling to earn a quote unquote living wage. We're going to discuss this here today. Let me see if I can move some things around on these boards. I don't know if I can. I don't know what I just did. Don't want to do that. What did I just do? Let me get that back up. There we go. And I just moved one of the boards by accident. There it is. Now it went behind me. Now if I put it up here, and then it disappears. Then if I put it over here, you can't see it. Yeah, TikTok got to do something about this. I like the concept of them putting the board. You see that right there? I like the concept of them putting this here, but this shit is not working the way it's supposed to work. TikTok, they got some work to do on the tech side of this. Let me see if I can do anything about this. Not really. But anyway, let me move it as much as I can so it doesn't get in the way. We'll put it up here in the top corner, maybe over here. No, you can't see it. All right, we'll just put it over there. Yeah, either way, it's not working. As y'all are coming in, shout yourselves out in the comment section. Tell me your locations where you are checking in. We are live on Rumble. Good morning. Live on YouTube. Good morning. Let me check on X. Are we good on X? Yes, we are active. Wait, let me be sure about that. Yes, we are active on X. Good morning. Live on Facebook, Facebook/ Work on Your Game University. Yes, we are live on LinkedIn, LinkedIn/ Dre all day. Y'all know how the LinkedIn URL is. We are live on Instagram at Dre Baldwin. And yesterday I tried to change my profile picture on Instagram. They asked me for pictures of my ID. And then I got on Instagram this morning. And Instagram is offering you an option to let your friends and followers see your location as you are using Instagram. Any of you said yes to that? You're crazy as hell. All right, say no to that. Is that they're already looking at everywhere you're going. By the way, Instagram itself already knows everywhere you're at, in case any of you didn't know. You got a smartphone, whatever app you use, you allow it to have the location. It already knows everywhere you're going. But you might as well keep the people who are following you from knowing where you're at. Do not tell people exactly where you're at. Never do that. So don't let that tracking thing go on there. And any of you's ever, if your partner, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, let me not say partner, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, guy, friend, whatever, you don't want to call them a boy or a girl, they're older.
they ask you to turn on the location tracking on your phone, like Google Maps or Apple, the location tracking. So, and their reason is just so I know where you are, just in case something happens, I can track you. Say, hell, no, do not accept that. Do not allow your uh, significant other to track your location. Don't do that. Only person you can turn the tracking location is your kids. If your kids got a phone, they're under the age of 18, you can track them, but don't let anybody track you, at least voluntarily. They're already tracking you, but if you got an option to say no, say no. So anyway, and we're live on TikTok. Good morning. So as y'all are coming in, please like the live, tap the screen, and let me shout out some people who are checking in here. Dwayne Mitchell, first comment, Detroit in the house. Shout out to Detroit. This color that TikTok got me is a little bit too bright. My suit is not that bright, but let me see. I don't know if I can do anything about this lighting. All right, we'll just deal with it. Detroit is in the building. Who else we got here? IT Burnout checking in from North Carolina. Shout out to North Carolina. We have Nikki. Good morning. Checking in from Connecticut. Shout out to Connecticut. Number 3 gifter badge already. Number 1 gifter badge. Went from number 3, number 1 that quick. Carol Ann Collins, Newburgh, New York. Shout out to New York. Leah Gibson, 585, stationed in Japan. I've never been to Japan, but shout out to Japan. Shout out to Aaliyah checking in from overseas. What time is it in Japan, Aaliyah? Marky Man checking in from Sacramento. Good morning. Gemini Gypsy, good morning to you. Happiness Now, good morning in ATL. Shout out to Atlanta. Atlanta's a beautiful place. Last time I was in Atlanta was for some business stuff, but I was in Atlanta once and looking around. Oh, look at this. We have a special guest. You coming to join us this morning?
No.
No? Well, you already just joined us.
You just dropped the grape and you just made it bad. Just
what?
Dropped it on the ground.
Drop what?
You just dropped it on the floor.
What did I drop on the floor?
A grape.
I did?
Yeah.
When?
You dropped it one time.
What are you talking about? I didn't touch any grapes.
You're eating it with your hands and then it dropped on the floor.
So I have not eaten any grapes today. Let me tell you what I ate today. I ate 2 bananas.
Yeah.
Before I ran. And then after I ran, I ate a mandarin and I ate an apple and I drank a protein shake. I haven't eaten any grapes. You're coming in here accusing me of something that I didn't do.
Oopsie.
You just accused me of something that didn't happen. Did you dream that last night? I know you just woke up.
You came in here and you just dropped the grape.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no food in this room. Where do you see grapes?
Mommy picked the grape up and he sold it.
That's between you and Mommy. I didn't do anything. What's that got to do with me?
You lost a grape. I'm going to come show you where it is.
I think you imagine this in your dreams, son. I haven't eaten any grapes. I like grapes, but I haven't eaten any today.
I'll show you where there's a grape.
All right, you can show me later, but I have to finish doing this video. I'm recording right now. You see these people listening to me? Do you want to stay here with me?
No, I just want you to show me. You're
going to have to show me later because I have to finish recording. I already started my recording. You know that I do this in the mornings, right? You want to stay here with me while I do it?
No, thanks.
Okay. I'll see you later. You can show me the grape later, okay? Okay. He's upset because I won't come out there so he can show me this imaginary grape that he's talking about. But anyway, we got to do the business. He'll understand when he gets older. So let me see. I was shouting a couple of you out in the comments. I lost my spot. So Lima, Ohio's in the building. Ron Johnson. Aaliyah said it's 9:00 p.m. in Japan. All right, shout out to Japan. 9:00 p.m. So y'all about 13 hours ahead of us. Sexy Jam said, good morning. My first time watching you from Massachusetts, Boston. Shout out to Boston, Massachusetts. Hammonds from Columbus, Georgia. A and B, thank you. Gary Gray, good morning. Sherry from Mesa, Arizona. Gemini said, are you going to homeschool? Probably, most likely. Unless our kid goes to a private school. The private schools cost a lot of money. It depends on what private school, where it is. I mean, I've looked at a few, but my son is not yet 3 years old. He'll be 3 years old soon. So got a couple years to figure it out. But if my son gets homeschooled, he's not going to lose anything. Hammonds, thank you. So I see a lot of you leaving comments about my son. Thank you. Sherry, good morning. Jam says, sounds like, I don't know where he got the idea of the grape. I haven't heard anything about a grape today. So he just came in with that out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. Marcus said, tell him, Mike, everyone show me the evidence. Yeah, he wanted to show me the evidence. I just told him I wouldn't come out there to see it. So he was disappointed. Y'all couldn't see his face, but he was disappointed when I told him I wasn't coming out there. CVN, good morning. T-Soap said, I love private. Is miles better than public? No disrespect. I'm not sending my son to a private school. I mean, public school. T-Soft, Suave. My son's not going to a private school. None of my kids are going to public schools. Excuse me. None of my kids will be going to public schools unless there's a really good public school in a really good neighborhood, which might be possible. But either there's going to be private school or homeschool. But I'm better at teaching than any teacher in America. So if my son is homeschooled, again, he's not going to lose anything. So let me actually get to the topic here today. We're supposed to be talking about CEO pay being too high because I was looking into, I did look into it, but I saw a story that came out the other day just talking about CEO pay in America. We know this has been a big story for many years, ever since this concept of a living wage, quote unquote, has been an item. And ever since people have started to make noise about how much money CEOs earn at companies as opposed to the workers who work at those same companies, the salaried workers. Well, CEOs on salary too. The rank and file people who are not in the C-suite, how much money they're making when working at companies. Some of you are old enough may remember back in the 90s, back in the 1990s, there used to be this same chorus talking about professional athletes. You notice that's pretty much over now. Nobody does that anymore. It used to be this chorus from people saying, we can't believe that professional athletes, baseball players and football players and basketball players make so much money, and they were making way less then than they're making now, but it would still be a significant amount of money. Let's say $1 million a year for playing a sport. How are professional athletes making all this money when a teacher is only making this, or a maintenance man is only making this, or a construction worker only makes this? It used to be about athletes. Nobody's saying that anymore. That's pretty much over, unless you're talking about the WNBA or the women's national soccer team. Other than that, nobody's complaining about how much money athletes make these days. As a matter of fact, people are defending how much money athletes make these days. Now the focus has shifted to the CEOs and the C-suites and the CEOs and the owners of companies, how much money they're making, how much money they allegedly have, as opposed to how much money the people who work for them have, as if they are being done wrong by their bosses or by their employers. So in 2024, the average CEO of a company on the S&P 500, for those of you who know what the S&P 500 is, it's basically shared with us as an amalgamation of the top 500 companies in the country that are publicly available, publicly traded. And S&P 500, by the way, this is not financial advice, but a good stock to invest in if you know nothing about investing. You're not a what's the word they call it? A sophisticated investor. I don't consider myself a sophisticated investor. You want to invest in just one simple thing, invest in the S&P 500. You want to invest in your kids' future, you can invest in the S&P 500. Again, this is not financial advice. Speak to any financial professional or tax attorney before making, or finance attorney for making any serious financial decisions. But I just said it. So anyway, S&P 500, the average CEO salary is $16.7 million in 2024. In 2024, the average CEO salary was $16.7 million for a year. That's more than the average NBA player. So you want to tell your kids if they want to make a whole lot of money, maybe instead of trying to make the NFL or the NBA, they should try to become a CEO, because the average salary is actually higher of an S&P 500 company. And the NBA has about 500 players. So actually, if you're going to try to be the 1 in 500 in the NBA or the 1 in 500 in the S&P 500, you're better off going for the S&P 500 because it's actually more money. So there's an argument right there, especially to you parents of black kids, why your kids should try to become a CEO rather than try to become a basketball player. Also, on top of the fact that a basketball career averaged at about 5 years, whereas a CEO could be CEO for like 50 years. So that is on the record. That one is good advice. So the average worker at these same companies, where the CEO is earning $16.7 million. Anybody want to guess what the average worker earns at the same companies in the S&P 500? What's the average worker earning? Give me a dollar amount per year. I'm asking in the comments. Give me a dollar amount in the comments. How much money is the average worker at an S&P 500 company? These are companies on the public stock exchange. These are the top 500 companies generally in the country that makes up the S&P 500 that generally represents the market. They generally represent the country. And S&P 500, you invest in it, it consistently goes up about 8% every year. So again, that's why it's a good investment. So I'm asking y'all, what's the average salary? I have the number in front of me, but I want to know you all's guess. Tay Swab says 75K. That's too high. Carolyn said 50K. Number is 51,000. So Carolyn, you hit it pretty close. Bravo Girl says 60K, a little high. So all you're around 50K is pretty good. Sherry said 80K. Yeah, that's ambitious. That's ambitious. 51,000, around 51,000 is what they said. Reggie said $75 an hour. I didn't hour average it out. Hammond said 100K. No way. Half of that. $51,000. Now, if you do the math on that, that's 324 times the salary. That means the CEO earns 324 times more money than the average worker at the same company. 40 years ago, that same ratio was 20 to 1. Now it's 324 to 1. That is a damning case. If I'm Bernie Sanders or AOC, that is or what's our guy in New York, Zohran Mamdani? If I'm one of those people, this is a very, very strong talking point that they should be using. I don't agree with their approach, but if I was advising them, I say this is a very strong point they should be using in the argument for why the people at the top, the oligarchs, using Bernie Sanders language, the oligarchs are controlling everything and they're just pressing down on the peasants, because it used to be a CEO earned 20 times as much as their employees. Now they earn 324 times as much as their employees. That's a lot of money. And for example, in some places it's even worse. At Starbucks, the CEO is a guy named Laxman Narasimhan. I've never heard of this person, but Mr. Laxman, I'm assuming this is a man. The CEO's pay at Starbucks is $19.6 million last year. So again, 16.7 was an average. 19.6 to be CEO of Starbucks. You only have to like coffee to take $19.6 million. And the average barista at Starbucks, you know how much they earn in a year? Anybody want to guess that number? This is the average barista. So this is not necessarily full-time. And I don't know if is there such thing as being a full-time barista? But this is averaging in everybody. Full-time, part-time. How much is the average person making coffee for you at Starbucks earning? You go to the Starbucks drive-thru, or you walk in Starbucks and you order your little latte or your big latte or your venti latte, or what's the one in the middle? I forget. It's venti is one of them. What's the other two? It's venti, grande, and there's one more. What's the other one? I don't drink coffee, so y'all tell me. What is the average barista earning at Starbucks? I'm asking everybody for a number. Just average out of all of them. 30K, 35K. Lisa said 25K. Glenn Hayes said 30K. Let me see. Miss Make It Happen said 30K. Ashley said 25K. Taste Wild 25K. Is Grande Trenta? Is that what it's called? Third Stream said 16K. Marky Man said 30K. Is Trenta? I didn't know it was okay. Trenta. I Am Magic said 20K. Tall was 12 ounces. Hammond said 20K. All right, all of you are a little bit too ambitious. The closest to of everyone was Third Stream, who said 16K. The average barista at Starbucks earns $14,000 a year. $14,000 a year. Now, how the hell are you going to live on $14,000? Maybe they do other things. Again, this is all the baristas at Starbucks. This means the part-time, full-time, everybody put together. The average is $14K, which means you probably have several who are earning less than that, and you got a bunch who are probably earning more than that. And again, how much more than that would you need to live anywhere in America? I mean, how much money do you need to live just anywhere that any of you live? How much money would you need? I'm thinking you need at least like 35, 40K to just be to get by. You probably need 40K. Average barista is earning $14,000 at Starbucks. That's a 14,055 to 1 ratio. In other words, the CEO earns the same amount as, not 14,000, 1,400. The CEO of Starbucks earns the same amount of money as 1,400 of his employees. So one guy makes more money in 2 days than the average worker makes all year. And by the way, there are players in the NBA who earn twice as much as the CEO of Starbucks. But again, you could be Starbucks CEO for 20 years. You cannot play in the NBA for 20 years unless you happen to be LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. And they are exceptions. So some are saying that this is not capitalism. This is monarchy. And it's not about envy. It's about the fact that people who run companies get paid millions no matter what, while the people who do the day-to-day work have to do double shifts just to be able to pay rent. This is a strong Bernie Sanders argument. This is a strong AOC argument. This is a strong Zohran Mamdani argument. This is a very strong argument. Now, there's more to it, but this is a very good point that they should be using every single day. When Bernie Sanders did his Fight the Oligarchy tour, him and AOC, are they still on tour? I don't even know. But if they're still doing that tour, these are the type of things that they did the tour on, things that they should be bringing up and things they should be talking about all the time. And some frame is that this is not about hating people who are successful. It's about asking who's actually creating the value and why the rewards are so lopsided. Now, that point right there, we're going to get into. Let me introduce myself first for those who don't know me. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I've written a bunch of books. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is we help people structurally, consistently, and systematically produce results through weaponized discipline, accountability, and performance. You can learn more about that by going to the links in my profile. And I try to pin a link to Work on Your Game University here, but my head is blocking it. I don't like TikTok's board set up here. It just doesn't, no matter where you move it, it doesn't quite work. So I'm trying to move it around. I think y'all can see that, but it doesn't quite look right. So TikTok still has some work to do on the tech side when it comes to that. But y'all can find out more about working with me, what I do, and how to work with us by going to the links in my profile on whatever platform you're watching me on. I am live on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube all at the same time right now. So the replay to this will also be on my YouTube channel. And if anything ever goes wrong, specifically on TikTok, because I've been suspended off of this platform 15 times in the last 11 months. That's not a joke. That's not an exaggeration. 15 suspensions in the last 11 months for saying something that TikTok's AI censors didn't like. So anytime you see me get kicked off of here randomly or my live just ends for no reason, just jump over to Instagram or jump over to YouTube. I'm still there. Just in case. We've been good for about the last month. My last suspension was about a month ago. We've been good since then. So hopefully we continue a good streak. So this whole concept of who's actually creating value and why the results are so lopsided is the following. Let's talk about this first of all. Who's actually creating value? It's a very subjective term. It's very hard to quantify who is creating value when you're talking about the CEO and you're talking about the worker at a publicly traded company, because a lot of people don't know this, but CEO is a job. CEO is not the owner. The CEO of a company is not necessarily the owner. You can be the CEO and the owner at the same time, but you don't necessarily have to be. So the CEO is a person who gets hired, and a CEO can be fired by the board of directors. Those are the people who really make the decisions about what happens in a company. And the shareholders are the ones who actually own the company. And the larger shareholders usually have a seat on the board of directors. And because they own so much of the company, they have a seat on the board of directors. The board of directors really makes all the decisions. So if you buy into a company and you own the majority of the shares, you probably also want to have a say in what happens in that company. That's the reason why you own so much of it. And usually the person who starts a company often owns a whole bunch of the shares because they owned 100% of the shares when they started the company. If two people start a company and the company ends up going public, usually they start out with owning 50% each of all the shares. And as they get investors coming in, they sell shares to the investors. The investors pay for the shares by putting investment money into the company. Now that investor has some ownership. They probably get a seat or 2 or 3 on the board based on how much money they put in. Now they have say in how the company runs. All those people on what is known as the board, or more specifically, the board of directors, they vote and make decisions on what the company is going to do, such as hiring a CEO, firing a CEO, and all the big things that companies do is all about what the board of directors decides to do. So a CEO, again, is a hired employee. A lot of people don't know that, but a CEO is a hired employee. Yes, you can get hired for a job that pays you $16.7 million a year. So again, tell your kids, don't try to make the NFL or the NBA, where your career is only going to be like 5 years long. How about you become a CEO, where you could do that for 20 years and you make more money than the football and basketball players? So CEO pay, actually, before I even get into that, they say, who's creating the value? And then what I hear a lot of people say this on X, which is the only social media app in which I will actively engage in back and forth conversation with anybody, other than my active comments on these live streams. I do have active conversation here, but other than that, on social media, you're not going to see me in the comments anywhere except on X. So if you want to engage with me textually, go to X, and my name on X is Dre All Day, or just look up my name, Dre Baldwin, or just look up Work on Your Game. You'll see me. I see a lot of people saying, and it makes sense, that the workers are the ones who are really creating the most value because they're the ones actually out there working. Irma V, thank you for that gift. They're the ones out there working every day and putting the hours in, putting the time in, and the blood, sweat, and tears. And their work combined is more important than the work of the CEO, because if all the workers stopped working, then Starbucks couldn't be Starbucks and McDonald's couldn't be McDonald's. The CEO Yes, they do work, but there's only one CEO. How is it that that one CEO is making more money than all the people who are working there every day? That doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And again, these numbers that I just laid out, that CEO pay used to be 20 to 1, now it's 324 to 1, that's a hell of a stat. That's a hell of a stat. You're trying to make the argument that the workers are actually doing a lot more based on how they're getting paid versus what the CEO is doing based on how they are getting paid. And generally, I wouldn't even try to argue against that. At the same time, to say who's actually creating value, it depends on, again, what you consider to be value. Because the job of a CEO is more demanding than the job of the average worker. And the CEO is harder to replace than the average worker is to replace. We know this by looking at the marketplace response to the CEO, the idea of the CEO versus the idea of the worker. So if you're working at Starbucks and you're earning $14,000 a year, well, here's the reality. If you were to quit your job at Starbucks, your $14K job at Starbucks or your $50K job at some S&P 500 company, it is much easier for me as let's say I'm the corporate headhunter. Those who don't know what that term is, that's a person who goes out and finds people to fill jobs that need to be filled. I was talking to a guy who does that the other day. It's easier for the corporate headhunter to replace a $50,000 a year person than it is to replace a $16 million a year person. It's much harder to find a $16 million a year person simply because there are fewer of them. And that's the reason why the market responds by paying more money to these people, simply because scarcity makes value increase. And the circulation and the plethora, let's just say, for lack of a better term, of $50,000 a year workers, let alone $14,000 a year workers, such as a Starbucks barista, there are so many more of them. That's the reason why their value gets driven down, because there are just so many of them. There's so much market competition. If you're a barista at Starbucks, nothing personal against you, but you are a commodity. What is a commodity? A commodity is something that is easily replaceable, and there is no clear distinction between one and the next and the next and the next. You can just pick any one of them. They're all the same. It's like if you were going to the grocery store and you said, Dre, I'm going to the grocery store. What do you need? And I said, go get some table salt from the grocery store. We need some salt. Just get table salt. Doesn't matter which one you buy. Not really. You go to the grocery store. Let's say there are 10 different types of table salt, and they all cost $5 for the package, and they're all the same size. It doesn't matter which one you get. No, because they're all pretty much the same. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between, oh, you got this one, but you didn't get that one. They all taste the same to me. It's all table salt. That's a commodity. And if you're working at a job that pays $14,000 a year, you are a commodity. You're easily replaceable, which means if you don't want the job, somebody else will take the job. And if they don't want the job, somebody else will take the job. And if you get the job and quit, somebody else will replace you tomorrow. Now, at $50,000 a year, there are a little bit fewer people. It's like going up a pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, the people making the lowest amount of money, there's a lot of competition. And that's the reason why your value is so low. When I say value, I don't mean your value as a human. I mean the amount of money that the marketplace is willing to pay you is lower simply because there are so many others of you that you are easily replaced if you don't want it or you don't keep it. Now, you move up to the $50,000 a year level, there are still a lot of people, but fewer of them. That's the reason why you get $50,000 a year. Then you move up to $100,000, $10 million, $16 million a year, like the CEOs. There are so few people capable of fulfilling that CEO role, at least based on what the marketplace says, that's the reason why the CEO is able to get so much money, because there is a higher level of competition, but fewer people competing. So the CEOs are able to make the kind of money that they make. Now, what does this mean for the average everyday person? Well, I'll give you the short answer and the long answer. The short answer is don't be the average everyday person. Now, a lot of people don't like hearing that, but this is the reality. Don't be the average everyday person who is only worth $14,000 in the marketplace, because the market is going to give you what you are able to either accept, negotiate, or demand. That's the way it works in careers. Any of you wants to make more money in what you do, there are things this is the thing you need to understand about how you make money. There's only 3 ways to get the salary that you want, or to get a salary, period. You either accept what is offered to you. That's the $14,000 a year Starbucks barista. They have no power to negotiate. They have no power to make a demand. Why? Because you are not bringing anything special to the table that is not easily replicated by the 10 people who just walked by the Starbucks while we've been sitting here talking. If you don't take this job, there are 10 people walking by, standing at the bus stop across the street who can do the same thing I'm about to hire you to do. So if I offer you $14,000 and you don't want it, so what? I'll go get somebody else who will take $14,000. It's not hard to find another one of you. You are easily replaceable. Remember that Kanye West song called Stronger? He said, there's 1,000 yous, there's only one of me, or something like that. The way he said it, something like that. Because you're easily replaceable. Now, That's the acceptance level. The acceptance level is when you're easily replaceable. You just take what they give you. When I got a job at McDonald's when I was a senior in high school, I was at the level of acceptance, meaning had no power to negotiate. I wasn't bringing any special skills. I had no brand name in the marketplace. And if I didn't take the job to flip burgers, somebody else would take the job to flip burgers. I needed the job more than the job needed me. And again, a lot of people don't like hearing this, but this is the situation. That's when you had to accept. Second level is negotiation. Negotiation is when you go to a job and they say, what are your salary expectations? You give them a number. Let's say you say, I expect 80,000. And they say, well, hey, this job is expecting to pay 70,000. Y'all go back and forth. Maybe you agree on 75. Maybe you agree on 74. Maybe you agree on 78. Maybe you agree to accept 70, but you're going to come back to the table next year. You're negotiating. They're willing to talk with you and work with you because though you are not 100% irreplaceable, you are still valuable. You're more valuable than it's not so easy to replace you so quickly. And those of you who don't understand this, it costs companies more money to replace an employee than it costs to have and keep an employee. So they're better off keeping somebody who is asking for $80,000 a year through negotiation than it is to let that person walk away and then have to go do the work all over again to find another qualified candidate. That's the negotiation level where you can negotiate. There's a back and forth. There's a give and take. You get your money. The third level is the level of demanding. The level of demanding is when you are so good, so rare, so irreplaceable that you tell them what they have to give you and they either meet your number or you go elsewhere and they got to deal with the pain of not having you and you can go somewhere else and get that number. An example of this is, let's say if you called Beyonce or Rihanna and said you want them to sing at your birthday party, they're going to give you a number. They're going to give you the terms and you either pay it or you don't, but they don't care if you say no. If you don't have the money, then they're not doing the gig. You can't negotiate with them. If Beyonce says $1 million for me to perform at your birthday party, and you say, well, we got a budget of $600,000. Can you work with us? They're going to say no. They're not going to return your phone call. They're not going to return your email. It's $1 million. If you got $1 million, let's do it. If you don't have $1 million, happy birthday, but Beyonce ain't coming. That's the level of demanding. And to demand, you don't have to be famous, but you need to be in the mind of your prospect irreplaceable to where they don't see another option besides you, which means whatever number you give, they got to go get it. Or they got to settle for something less than you. So Beyonce is not the only person who can sing happy birthday at a birthday party, but some woman who sings at the piano bar down the street, she can sing it too, but she ain't Beyonce. Might actually be a better vocalist than Beyonce, but she ain't Beyonce. I remember I was at a college graduation years ago and Bill Gates was speaking. This was at Stanford University. Bill Gates is talking. And I thought Bill Gates was going to give this amazing speech. So I'm like, man, it's Bill Gates. This speech is going to be great. The speech was whack. It was actually very boring. And there was nothing memorable about anything that Bill Gates said. But what I came to realize in the aftermath of the speech was that Bill Gates was speaking at the commencement, not because he's a great speaker, but because he was Bill Gates. And whatever amount of money they paid him to give that speech, they probably gave him $100,000 to do that speech. Not because the speech was so good, but because everybody who was there that day could say, like I'm saying right now, I was at a graduation and Bill Gates was speaking. Now, did he say anything profound? No, he didn't. Was the speech any good? No, it wasn't. But it was Bill Gates who did it. And see, when you get to that level, you get to demand whatever you want. And CEOs are at that level. They can get the money not based on what they do, but based on who they are. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people really don't appreciate, and a lot of people don't want to hear when it comes to the marketplace, when it comes to money and earning what you earn, is that you are better off getting paid for who you are than getting paid for what you do. Now, why does that matter? That matters because when you get paid for what you do, you have to keep doing it to keep getting paid, which means if you get tired, if you get injured, if you go on vacation, if you get sick, or you just don't want to do it anymore, your money stops immediately. This is the problem with being a professional athlete. My background is in professional sports. As soon as you stop playing, the money stops. Like that day. As soon as you stop playing, the money stops. When you get paid for who you are, your name, image, and likeness can make you money even when you're not working. Now, an athlete that's super famous, let's say LeBron James, Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, they can get paid based on their name even if they're not playing the game. Even long after they stop playing. Michael Jordan is noted to be a billionaire. He hasn't played basketball in a long time because his name, image, and likeness are worth a whole lot of money. But understand, most athletes are not Michael Jordan. Right? Not Michael Jordan is 1% of the 1%. Most athletes only get paid while they're playing. When they stop playing, it's over. That's why they become coaches, trainers, analysts. You see them on ESPN because they ain't making no money from basketball anymore. They still got to pay bills. That's the reason they're on ESPN, not because they love talking about basketball. It's because they need a job. No disrespect to them. That's what it is. All right? And the thing is, when you get paid for who you are, you now have price elasticity. This matters a lot. What is price elasticity? Price elasticity is when Your price is not based on someone looking at the work and saying, well, this work is worth this much, so this is how much I'll pay. See, that's the barista at Starbucks. The barista at Starbucks get paid $14,000 because Starbucks says, okay, all you got to do is grab the cup, put a little bit of milk in there, and then you put the syrup in there, and then you stir it up, and you put it in the machine, you put some ice on it, and you put the frosting on the top, and you put a cup on it and put a sticker on it, and then you call out the name. Hey, I got a iced mocha latte for Tracy, and then you hand it off to Tracy. Okay, that's worth $14,000. Why? Because Starbucks is measuring your activity. They're saying this activity is worth this much money. That's what they're telling you. Now, if you're the CEO, yes, you're doing certain jobs too, but you're not getting paid based on the actions that you're not getting paid to respond to emails and have meetings. You're getting paid because of who you are. Your reputation as a CEO matters much more than what you actually do and the buttons that you click and the emails that you respond to when you're at work. That's getting paid for who you are, not what you do. Everybody understand this? Go back to an example I just gave you. The reason Beyonce can charge $1 million for her to sing at your birthday party is not because her singing happy birthday is worth $1 million. Again, you can get somebody who lives down the street to sing happy birthday at your party for free. Why are you paying $1 million to Beyonce? Because it's Beyonce. Because you can take pictures and everybody's going to pull out their phone, and the person whose birthday it is going to say, hey, everybody on Instagram, I had a birthday party yesterday, and guess who was singing at my party? Beyonce. That is worth $1 million. Now, the lady down the street who nobody knows, that ain't worth nothing. That's why she doesn't get paid. She's doing it for free. The point being here, this is a branding marketing lesson for all of you. If you want to take the lid off of, you want to take the ceiling off of your income, you need to start getting paid for who you are, not for what you do. Again, this is the challenge with athletes. You stop doing it, it's over. It's the challenge with most people in Beyonce's lane. They ain't Beyonce. As soon as they stop making songs, as soon as they stop doing shows, ain't no more money. And it's the challenge for many of you. As soon as you stop working, the money stops. That's why that's why it is valuable. I'm not saying you need to, but it's valuable to build a brand to where your name or the thought of you, the image of you, the idea of you is worth money rather than just you yourself. Again, Michael Jordan, when's the last time you played basketball? All right, some of you never even saw Michael Jordan play basketball, but you got his sneakers on. That's getting paid for who you are, not for what you do. And this is also something that you can do when you own an asset. You build a business and you own an asset. You can get paid off the asset. It doesn't have to be you. So I'm giving you these examples of people who are famous. You do not need to be famous. If you build a brand and you build an asset and you have ownership of that asset, every time somebody buys that asset, you make a little bit of money. Michael Jordan does not even own the Jordan brand. Nike owns the Jordan brand, but Michael Jordan gets royalties. So that means every time somebody buys some Jordans, Nike's getting some money, Michael Jordan's getting some money. People don't buy Jordan sneakers because they saw Michael Jordan do a dunk and they want to be Jordan. Most people ain't even seen Jordan play. They walking around with Jordan sneakers on. Michael Jordan's 60-something years old and fat. All right, he ain't making no dunks. All right, he probably couldn't dunk anymore. But people are buying because the image of Michael Jordan is worth money. All right, that's the thing that matters the most. So what does this mean for all of you? If you're not Michael Jordan, you can own an asset. All right, what does owning an asset mean? You can buy into a company like Starbucks. Let's say you own some shares in Starbucks and the value of Starbucks goes up between now and 10 years from now. You make money even though you didn't do anything. You didn't make any drinks. You didn't run the company. You didn't respond to any emails. You didn't go in any meetings. You weren't on any shareholder phone calls. You don't even drink coffee, but you make money because you have ownership into an asset. When you buy into a company, you are buying into an asset. That asset may go down. The asset may go up. The asset goes up, you make money. That's called investing. So you don't need to be famous. Again, I'm giving you examples of famous people, but don't be fooled by these examples. You don't need to be famous at all, and you don't even need to be talented. All you got to do is invest in something that you believe the value is going to increase. That could be you as a person. It could be a company. It could be another person. You invest, they go up, you make money. All right, this is the way every industry works. The challenge for the workers working at Starbucks is that the only asset they have is themselves. The problem when your only asset is you is that as soon as you stop doing stuff, your money stops. This applies to a barista at Starbucks the same way it applies to a football player in the NFL. You ever see those documentaries and hear stories about how professional athletes go broke after they stop playing? All right, why did they go broke after they stopped playing when they were making millions of dollars? It's because their money stopped. They're not making any money, but they're still spending money. Same thing with a barista might say they're broke even while they're working because they are making less money. They got the same problem though. As soon as you stop working, the money stops. The CEO, on the other hand, depending on who the CEO is, there are different types of CEOs, some of them known, some of them not. is that, first of all, they're making a whole lot more money. Secondly, they often get as they say, the golden parachute. When they retire, they get a severance package and all these kind of things. And often, this is almost always, CEOs of big companies usually own stock in the company that they're working at. So if I'm the CEO of Starbucks, let's say they fire this guy, Laxman, and they call me and say, Dre, would you be the CEO of Starbucks? I might have to take that. I generally consider myself to be unemployable as I'm an entrepreneur. But if Starbucks called me and said, Dre, we just fired Laxman and he was making $19 million a year. Listen, we'll pay you 20 for you to be CEO of Starbucks. You only got to do it for a year or two. Dre, would you take that job? I might have to go take that 20. I might have to go take the 20. All right. Why? Because in addition, because all that pay is probably not even cash. Some of that is probably stock options. And let's just say what that means is Laxman, or me at that point, CEO Dre Baldwin, I got some ownership stock into Starbucks. And if I believe the value of Starbucks is going to go up after I leave, which it should, because I did a good job as CEO, I'm holding on to that asset, which means I got money coming in even after I'm no longer doing the job of CEO. And here's the problem with athletes. See, athletes don't have any ownership. They don't get the ownership into the teams. And athletes every now and then chirp about this. The problem is, who created the real value is the person who created the platform, not the person who's doing the work. So this goes to the other piece. What a lot of people like to say is that the CEO and the worker, they're kind of doing equal amount of work. The workers are doing way more altogether compared to the CEO. So why is the CEO making so much more money? Well, first of all, the CEO is working on the overall platform and the infrastructure of the company. That's what the CEO's job is to work on the business, not in the business. When you work in the business, you are a cog. And when you're a cog, you can be replaced. And again, I'm using a Starbucks barista, but let's talk about the New York Knicks. Let's say I own the New York Knicks and I got 12 players on my roster and they're all really good players. And this guy can score 40 points a game and this guy can do all these crazy slam dunks. They're still cogs. The players are still cogs. And again, I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but it is reality. They're cogs. How do you know that they're cogs? Because 20 years ago, the players on the New York Knicks were a completely different group of guys than the guys on the team today. And 20 years from now, the players on the New York Knicks will be completely different than the guys on the team right now. But guess what may stay the same the entire time? The ownership. See, the owners own the platform. So the New York Knicks were the New York Knicks in 1995. They're still New York Knicks now. There's still going to be New York Knicks in 2050. And there's still going to be guys playing for them, but it's going to be different guys. I can swap out the players. Ownership doesn't swap out as easily. And the owners are the ones making all the money because they own the platform. They're not the ones doing the work. And if you want to be in a position of power when it comes to business, you must own something. You can't just be working on it or in it. You got to be doing more than just working. Hard work is not the key to you getting ahead. Hard work is necessary to get ahead, but it's not the key. The key to getting ahead is you have to own something. Then you work on that. If you're going to work on making that thing even better so that it becomes more valuable. And as long as you own it, you want to set it up to where it can generate money for you without you having to continually do the work forever. That's what business ownership is about. And if you haven't read any books on business ownership, start with something like Robert Kiyosaki. And there are millions of others, maybe not millions, let's just say hundreds of others. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a good place to start to understand the principles of this. Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek is also good for how to apply it in just everyday common life, especially on the internet. So CEO pay is up 1,500% since 1978, but worker pay is up just 18%. All right, this is a problem that the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs of the world and the Zoran Mamdanis, that's the guy looks like he's going to become the mayor of New York City. That's what these people are talking about. The CEO pay keeps going up. So you got the CEO and you got the worker. So the worker's already down here. The CEO is already up here. But the CEO pay is rising this much where the worker pay is only rising this much. And people are like, this is a problem. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to exacerbate. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Is that true? Yes, it is. I'm going to tell you that is not just about dollars and cents. It's not just about the oligarchs or the people with all the power and all the money trying to hold everybody else back. The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And when I say rich and poor, I'm not necessarily talking about money. We're just talking about general success. Okay. The rich, whatever you consider to be rich, we get to be talking money. We can talk mindset. We can talk fitness. You can talk health. You can talk networking. You can talk connections. You can talk any way you want to talk about the rich and the poor. Those are people who are up here and the people down here. Okay. In any aspect of life, people who are up here because of the way that they think. And the way they think leads to the things that they do. And the things that they do lead to the outcomes that they get. That's rich. You think things, then you do things, and then you get things. Being, doing, having, in that order. Now, the poor, on the other hand, actually, there's no other hand, it's the same hand because it's the same reason why they're poor. Poor people think a certain way, then they do certain things based on those thoughts, and they get certain outcomes based on those actions. The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer is a real thing. That's the reason why you see alarmists and politicians often talking about this widening gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? You say that there's this 2% of people that control 50% of the wealth, and y'all hear these numbers, whatever the numbers are. Is it real? Whatever the actual number is it real? Yes. Is that getting worse? Yes. Has it always been getting worse? Yes. Is this brand new? No. Is it going to get worse in the future? Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell you why it's going to get worse. I just told you that rich people have certain habits that keep them rich and make them more rich. Poor people have certain habits that make them poor and keep them poor. And it makes them more poor. And that's the reason why the gap keeps widening, because no matter what you do, if someone has a rich mindset, they're going to find a way to rise. And if someone has a poor mindset, they're going to find a way to fail. There's nothing you can do to change that unless they want to change. You can't make a poor person become rich. You cannot make a rich person become poor. Donald Trump, for example, I don't know which one of his books it was. I've read all his books, but I think it might have been The Art of the Deal, which is his most famous book. And in that book, he said that he remembers being in debt. He was like billions of dollars in debt. So at one point, he was like $6 billion with a B in debt. That means he owed $6 billion to creditors and et cetera, et cetera. He was in the red. He said he remembered walking down the street in New York, and he saw some homeless guy laying on the sidewalk, and he thought to himself that the homeless guy is $6 billion richer than he was, because the homeless guy's at zero and Trump was at negative $6 billion. And here's the thing. Before Donald Trump got into politics, people used Trump as an example all the time when talking about mindset and being rich and money and success. He was often used as an example. People said, guys like Donald Trump, he was rich, he was known as a billionaire, then he lost everything, and he was billions of dollars in debt, and then he got rich all over again. Why is that? Why did Donald Trump get rich all over again after losing all that money? It's because he had a mindset of a rich person. And a rich person, you can take all the money out of their bank account, even have them in debt, they will find a way to get rich again. Not because they're some wizard with money. That's the idea that they sell to you. They're a wizard with money. That's not the reason why. They become rich again because their mindset will not allow them to stay down. Now, a poor person, on the other hand, get him $1 million. Give him $100 million. Give him $1 billion. Doesn't matter. You give a poor person, and poor is a mindset, folks. Rich is a mindset. They are not financial situations. Poor and rich are mindsets, not financial situations. Give a poor person a whole bunch of money, they will be poor again. They will lose all that money. They will find a way to lose every dollar that you give them. Why? Because when you have a mindset of being poor, you have no choice but to be poor. And if the universe somehow, some way puts you in a situation you're not supposed to be in, i.e. having a bunch of money, your poor mindset will overpower the tangible circumstance and bring you right back to where you belong, which is being poor. This is the way the universe works. So when you hear Bernie Sanders say the things that he's saying, and AOC is probably next in line, and Mr. Mamdani in New York saying these things, they're not wrong that the gap between one and the other is crazy. And I don't think it's crazy. I don't want to say I don't think it's crazy. I understand when people get excited about it. They get excited like, oh my God, how is the CEO making this much money and the workers only making that much money? I get why people get excited. And the reason why people get excited is they don't understand what I just explained to you all. They don't understand this is a mindset. There's nothing that a politician can do to change the mindsets of masses of people. You can't do it, Zoran Mamdani. You can't change the mindset of 8 million people in New York. They change it if they want to, but nothing you do is going to change their mindsets. You can try to put some policies in place. You could try to give people, what did he say, free public transportation, and we're going to own delis and all that nonsense. None of that's going to change the mindsets of the people. The rich people will find a way to get rich no matter what you do, and the poor people will find a way to be poor no matter what you do. And this applies to every politician. This applies to Joe Biden, Barack Obama, AOC, who was the other guy? AOC, Bernie Sanders, all these people. All these people with these socialist ideas. You can't manufacture success in people who don't have the mindset to be successful. It's impossible. You can try, and it sounds good. You'll win a whole bunch of votes. You can win a bunch of elections. You can write books about it. You can give speeches. You can go on tour and fight the oligarchy, but it's not going to change anything, because if someone has a poor mindset, you can't make them be successful. You can't. And you can't make a rich person be a failure. It's impossible. No matter what circumstance you put them in, they're going to find a way to rise. So is this CEO gap? See, this stuff about the CEO gap and how much money the CEO earns and how much money the barista earns, All these things are logical and rational, and they are accurate. But the human brain is not as logical or rational as people like to think it is. The human brain is much more driven by emotions. It's much more driven by ingrained habits. And the only way people change is they have to want to change. A politician can't make people change. So when Barack Obama came out in 2008 and his campaign was all about change, remember that? It would just be a silhouette of Obama, just said the word change. And he won 2 elections based off that. It sounded good and people got all excited. You know why people got excited about Barack Obama's campaign? Because change instituted by somebody else, and all you got to do is go to a voting booth and push a button, and all of a sudden there's going to be change that sells. That was a beautiful, brilliant marketing campaign because Barack Obama sold people on the concept that things were going to change and you didn't have to do anything. All you got to do is go push a button, and all of a sudden there's going to be change. All right, has there been much change? Here we are, 2025, 17 years later. Starbucks barista still making $14,000 a year. All right, how much change did we get for voting for Barack twice? I'm not even saying whether you voted for him or not. What I'm saying, I'm speaking here in a bigger picture idea. It was a great marketing campaign because it sold people on the idea of something changing in their life without them actually doing any work. It's a beautiful concept. If you want to sell people on something, do that. I just gave you a marketing lesson right there. Sell people on success without effort. All right, that is a one of the best selling things ever. It's the reason why people are getting Ozempic and the reason why people are going to the doctor to lose weight. And then they're posting pictures of themselves working out in the gym as if that's how they got it. Like, mofo, we know you're lying. All right, sell people on the idea of success without effort, and you will make endless money. Okay, moving on. Executives get bonuses even when companies underperform, and regular employees get laid off when companies underperform. Is this true? Answer is yes, it is. Again, everything Bernie Sanders says is true. I don't generally agree with Bernie's approach. I just kind of explain to you why. But everything Bernie and AOC, is going to be AOC now. I should just say AOC. Everything AOC is going to say when she tries to run for president in 2028, everything she says is true. The executives get bonuses even when the companies underperform. That is true. Executive does a bad job, gets fired, they get $100 million to leave. Does that happen? Yes, it does. And then the regular employees, they get fired when the CEO messes up. Is that messed up? Not really. That's the reality of how it works. Here's what I would say to you. Don't be the regular employee. Don't be the regular employee. If you're the regular employee, then you are susceptible to regular employee shit happening to you. If instead you put yourself in a position of being a CEO, then you're in a position to have CEO stuff happen to you. Which problems would you rather have? Pick a struggle, as we said. So when the CEO leaves, they get these golden parachutes I told you about. When the workers leave, they get fired. They get zero notice and a check. I've known people who have reached out to me and said, Dre, I'm looking for employment right now. And I say, what kind of job are you looking for? They tell me, I say, I thought you were working at ABC. And they say, well, I was. I got fired today. Oh, did you know you were getting fired? They said, no, I didn't know I was getting fired. I got fired today and they escorted me out the building and now I'm unemployed. That fast. That's what happens when you're a regular worker. They get rid of you just like that. You are disposable. You don't like being disposable. You don't like them getting rid of you like that. You don't like that the CEO gets all these things. Okay, become the CEO. I know it's not that easy. I didn't say anything about it being easy. Some of you have misheard what I said. Don't misrepresent my point. If you want something, you got to give something. No such thing in life as something for nothing. That's an economic law that everything has a cost. There is nothing for free. So anytime a politician tells you to give you something for free, you know they're lying. So again, that's one of the pushbacks on the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders. They're telling you all these things they're going to give you that sound so great, but you don't have to do anything to get them. Yeah, right. This is one of the reasons why Kamala Harris lost in 2024. All these things she was going to give away if you just voted for her. Never accept a free lunch. Never, ever, ever accept a free lunch. You know they're lying. Somebody offers you a free lunch. So companies often talk about things like inclusion and equity, right? We know about this diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? This has been a big deal. Inclusion and equity, while paying one person 1,000 times more than everybody else. So how is that possible? Well, that's the reason why you never should have bought into the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was what do we want to call it? It was them playing the game to make the everyday person, the everyday average worker feel like you were included and that there was equity between you and the people in charge. That's one of the things that DEI did. Let me say that one more time. It made a bunch of people feel like that you were included and that there was equity between you and the bosses. No, there wasn't. There never was. All right. That was just a game. They just played you. They got you all excited and they placated your emotions by telling you that we're all in this together. No, we ain't. Y'all heard the numbers, what I told you? The Starbucks CEO makes $19.6 million. The average barista earns $14,000 a year. Where's the equity in that? That ain't equity. Only person with equity is the CEO. The CEO got stock shares. How many stocks you got? How many shares you got of Starbucks earning $14,000 a year? Let's find out how much Starbucks share price is right now. Anybody know off the top of their head? Starbucks stock. Let's see where they are. Starbucks stock right now. One share of Starbucks is $88.99 as of today. It's actually, let's see. Yeah, it's been going up. I don't like to look. Sometimes they got one day. So far this year, 2025, is down 3%. That ain't bad. $88.99. And over the last 5 years, Starbucks stock is up 17%. $88.99. So you're earning $14,000 a year. All right, how many shares of Starbucks can you afford? The CEO, they got some shares. They got equity. That's the real equity. Equity is not, I feel like you and I are the same. All right, that's the bullshit equity. That's the Sesame Street equity. All right, the real equity is actually owning something. That's the real equity that you want, not the equity that makes you feel good. The equity that you can hold up on a piece of paper and you can look at your account statement and say, all right, I own this and money's coming in from that and I don't have to do any work. That's the real equity. So they played a bunch of you who bought into that equity and inclusion nonsense. So there are many workers, such as these Starbucks baristas, who are living paycheck to paycheck while their CEO earns more money before lunch than they earn all year. We already talked about that. Bernie Sanders, you were right. Okay, so y'all say I never gave Bernie Sanders any credit. I'm giving him credit. I'm giving AOC credit. I haven't really heard Mr. Mamdani, although those of you in New York, your new mayor, I haven't heard him talk that much. But from what I've heard about what he said, he's pretty much saying the same thing. They're right. The CEO earns a whole lot more than the average person. Now, let me ask you all a question. Do you think Bernie, AOC, and Mr. Mamdani, are they closer to being CEOs or average workers? What would y'all say? Put it in the comments. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Zoran Mamdani. I'm not talking about their paychecks. I'm just talking about the way that they live, who they deal with, how they operate. Are they closer to a CEO or the average barista at Starbucks? Which one are they closer to? And mind you, these are the people who are telling you how bad the CEOs are, right? And how terrible you have it as the average person. What do y'all think? AOC, Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani, are they closer to operating like CEOs or closer to operating like the average everyday person? Because they're telling you how terrible it is. And I'll give a few seconds for those of you to put in your answers. I know you got to think about it really hard. And I see most of you putting in there, say, CEO. Diana said, I worked for 25 years, got my job. What CEOs do or don't do, I don't care. Fair enough. Fair enough. Do you work at a publicly traded company? And the whole thing is these people talking about the CEOs and how terrible they are. You got to look a little bit deeper into what they're doing and how they're living and what people are saying about them. It sounds really good when they're preaching it, but is that what's really happening here? What's really happening here? So let's continue. Some CEOs make more in one day than the lowest employee earns all year. I already said that. The average American thinks a fair CEO to worker ratio should be back at 20-1. And now we're at 324-1 and rising. So Willa Villas over there on Instagram, I see you, the CEO. So they say the average American, I don't know where they got this number from, but let's just say this is true. The average American thinks the CEO to worker ratio should be around 20-1, but now it's 324-1. So if it was 20-1, let's see. Let's get some math done here. I'll ask Grok. I usually will ask ChatGPT, but let's ask Grok. It has been said that the Starbucks of CEO earns $19.6 million a year, while the average barista earns $14,000 a year. And people say that the average CEO pay should be about a 20-1 ratio. How much would that be, given these numbers that I just gave you, if it was 20-1 between the CEO and the average worker? All right, let's see what Grok has. Grok is better for maybe current events. So the CEO salary, if it was 20-1, the CEO would be earning about $280,000 a year. So people would be fine that the CEO earned $280,000 a year while the baristas earn $14,000 a year. And I get it. I'm not mad at the argument. The problem is, what people need to be mad about is the reality. The reality is that ain't happening. Numbers only going to get bigger. That's the reality. It's only going to get worse. This is not about anybody being jealous. It's about a system rewarding power more than it rewards performance. And I would say exactly. That's what it is, folks. The system rewards power, not just performance. Performance matters because if the company underperforms under the CEO will get fired. And the CEO will probably want another job. Let's say the CEO is 40 years old. They probably want to keep working. And they don't want that to be the last thing on their resume, that they got fired and that they underperformed at a company. But does power matter? Yes, it does. What is power? Power is influence. Power is your ability to influence and persuade others to do what you want them to do, or influence and persuade a situation to go the way that you want it to go. CEOs have power. Do they perform? Yes. Is their performance the same as what a worker does? No. Does it matter more? Yes, it does. And you know it matters more because you got to look at what the market says. Understand, folks, that what I'm talking about here today, I'm giving you my interpretation, but what I'm explaining to you here is just simple market dynamics. The market, for those of you who don't know what that means when I say the market, that is the world outside and the people who have the money and what they're willing to do with that money with regards to you. That's the market. So the market, for example, for LeBron James is they'll pay him $50 million to play basketball this upcoming season. That's the market. The market for the WNBA is that there's a player there who's not even making $100,000 to play this season, even though they're probably training, working out, practicing similarly to how much LeBron is. It ain't like LeBron's working out 1,000 times more than they are, but he's making 1,000 times more money. Why? Because the market for him is bigger than the market for them. This is the reality, folks. And this is where a lot of people get it messed up. They inaccurately believe that because my performance and my efforts and my time invested is equal to someone else's, that means my ROI should be the same as theirs. That is wrong. That's when you don't understand markets. That's true in kindergarten, maybe up to maybe the third or fourth grade, but not in real life. That's not true. If I'm working the same amount that you're working, but we're doing two completely different jobs, we're going to make different amounts of money. So if I work 8 hours a day as a Starbucks barista and I make $14K a year, and you work 8 hours a day as a CEO of Starbucks and you make $19 million a year, is that fair? Yes. That's fair. Why is that fair? Dre, how the hell is that fair? That's fair because I accepted the job making $14K a year and you accepted the job making $19 million a year. Nobody made you take the job. You're not being slave driven. You took the job. You don't like making $14,000 a year. How much you want to make? You want to make $80,000 a year? Okay, go apply for a job that pays $80,000 a year and prove that you can get it. Prove that you're worth it by getting hired for the job. Now, if you go out into the world, if with your $14K a year job, you take a day off so you can go put in some applications to make $80K, and you go put in a bunch of applications for jobs that pay $80K, and so you put in 20 applications on LinkedIn, and nobody hires you. Nobody even calls you in for an interview. Well, what is that? What does that mean? That means that the marketplace is telling you that it does not value you at $80,000 a year, at least not yet, because you apply for 20 jobs at $80K a year. Nobody offered you the job. That means the marketplace does not see you as worth $80,000 a year. Don't be mad at me. Don't shoot the messenger. That's the marketplace is the messenger. The marketplace is telling you where it values you by what you are asking for, number one. Number two, what you're capable of negotiating. Number three, what you end up accepting. This is the argument that you can throw back at anyone talking about, well, I only make this and the CEO makes that. Well, why'd you accept it? Nobody said you had to work there. You can quit. Work is at will. Every job in America is an at-will employment situation, meaning the employee can fire you whenever they want. You can quit whenever you want. You don't have to work there. So this is the fundamental disagreement I have with people complaining about their jobs and how much they're making and or not making and what they're incapable of doing. I understand it may make you upset, stressed, anxious, disappointed, pissed off. I get it. But complaining about it as if it has been done to you, I do not agree with. This is just not part of my mental makeup. I don't agree with this has been done to you when you have been living in this situation and you put yourself in this situation through your action or through your inaction. And you got to own that. The good thing about owning it is that you also can own doing something about it. This is the game. This is the way it works. So young workers aren't fooled. Again, these are the people who got Mr. Mamdani winning that primary in New York. They know who's really doing the heavy lifting. And they know. Yeah, they quote unquote know. What they know is what they know. And what they know is very little. This is AOC's fan base. This is Bernie Sanders' fan base. This is Zoran Mamdani's fan base and many other people is they're looking at the people who have the power, quote unquote, the power. They say, the young people are saying, or the lower level employees, whether they're young or old or whatever, they're saying we're the ones doing all the work. We're doing way more work than that person. Why are they making way more money than us? They can't really do anything to stop that. But what they can do is go support someone who is saying this through a megaphone on their behalf. Again, this is the Bernie Bros, this is the AOCs, this is the Fight the Oligarchy tour. This is Mr. Mamdani in New York. And what some people say is that if you're going to claim that we're a team, no inclusion and equity, then how are you making 1,000 times more money than the rest of us? Again, that's the power game. The inclusion and equity was just a show. That's all it was, just a show. And a bunch of you bought into it for 10 years. Is only now people are realizing, only now people are waking up from their dream and realizing that that was just a show. That was just a show, folks. That wasn't the real game. The real game is what we're talking about here. And if you want to play the real game, well, you got to put some real stakes on the line. That's the way it works. You want to play the real game, you got to put something real on the table. You cannot get something for nothing. It is one of the laws of economics that there is no such thing as a free lunch. The 3 key rules of economics, 3 laws of economics. Number 1 is supply and demand. Number 2 is that I forgot the second one. I'll tell you the second one in a second. The third one is that there is no such thing as a free lunch. And the second one, I talked about it actually like 10 minutes ago, but it just escaped my mind. But I'll come back to it in a moment. But these are the key laws of how economics works. Supply and demand is number 1. All of you have heard that before, that if someone's asking for it, then someone will supply it. You don't have to like it. Now, you don't like the fact that there's a bunch of OnlyFans girls out there. Well, the reason they're out there is because somebody's buying. If nobody was buying, nobody would be selling. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And the second one is the diminished marginal returns. Second law of economics is diminishing marginal returns. That the more you add to something, anything that's a fixed resource, eventually you start getting diminished returns. For example, if you're a human being, all of you are human beings, and you're hungry and you eat some food, all right, you're not hungry anymore. But if you keep eating, even past the point of no longer being hungry, eventually you start to get diminished returns and even negative returns from your physical body because you keep putting food into it when it no longer needs it. That's an example of diminished returns. That you got to hit your sweet spot of supply and demand. If you go past that spot, you start to make things worse. So all that being said, folks, let's open the floor for discussion. I do open the floor for discussion. So I know some of you are leaving comments while I was talking. If you are new here, this is how it works. I talk for some time, usually about 45 minutes to an hour. Then when I'm done, then I open the floor and I respond to comments for the rest of the time. We don't go past 10 o'clock. So that's as far as we're going to go here today. No later than 10 o'clock. Right now, it is 9:08 a.m. So I'm giving you all at the most 52 minutes here so we can get to the comments. I may not take that long. I don't always go that long, but we'll see. Who is it? David said they censored your podcast. No, I don't know who they is. Maybe. Giraffe said that's a line right there. Got to save that. Get paid for who you are, not what you do. Yes, that's exactly what the game is. That's what we do inside the university. I teach people how to do that. And that includes, of course, you got to have some game. You got to bring some value to the table, but also building up your brand. All of that matters. So let's see what we got in the comment section. I'm reading from the oldest to the newest, by the way. So if I'm not reading your comment at the moment that you post it, that's because I'm still catching up on older comments. So as y'all coming in, I think I can see most of the comments here today. So let's see what we got. If you got a comment, go ahead and post it in the comments. Again, be patient while I catch up to where you are at. Trev Time said, imagine if they mess up a coffee versus if he messes up his job. Yes, good point. They mess up a coffee, just throw it away and make another one. He messes up his job, it might affect the stock price of the company, which affects people's retirement and everything. Tay Swab says, sir, the CEO literally has more responsibilities. I didn't say that they didn't. GGB, good morning. Marky said, the bio still says Howard Stern. Yeah, well, I changed it, so I don't know why it's still in there. TikTok got to do something about their systems of putting the topics up. TikTok's a little shaky with that. Maria Martin said, you should be in Black Enterprise. I agree. I should be in Black Enterprise. Mental Libtard said, what's your thoughts on early retirement programs and reduction in force? What about it? You got to ask me something a little bit more specific because that could be a whole topic in and of itself. Chanel, thanks for sharing the live. Is that Chanel, the clothing company there, sharing my live? Chelsea said, I made $250,000 selling my house and only paid $30K in mortgage. Great. Congrats. Carmel Paul Prince, thanks for the share. Scorpio, thanks for the follow. Roy P, thanks for the follow. Jenna said, When only a few can do versus many can do, they pay you more. That's correct. Yes, theoretically, that is right. When there's scarcity, your value goes up. Scarcity drives value. So Lupo says no different than McDonald's owning the land and all the franchisees lease for the locations. Yes, the McDonald's has a brilliant business model. McDonald's is in the real estate business. A lot of people think they are in the hamburger business, but they're really in the real estate business. Phil2695, thanks for the share. Bob Scott said you can only go in one direction. Who are you talking about? Andrew Stromo Tits. You said he ripped people off. Who are you talking about? Jeep OIO said you are very good. Thank you. Andrew said when you don't give a shit who you do harm to, you steal from. It's easy. Who are you talking about, Andrew? Sword of Yahoo. Thanks for the follow. Dofat said you see it all the time with lottery winners. I don't know why people are still naive. Well, if people don't go and seek out information, then they remain naive. That's how it works. Lovely Curls, thanks for the follow. Andrew said Trump has destroyed the lives of so many people. Andrew, I should have known you were talking about Trump when you left like 15 comments in a row, and I didn't know exactly who you were talking about. All right, we get it. You don't like Trump. But the topic today is not Trump. Now, y'all see this? Y'all see when I am not talking about Trump, there's always somebody in the comments who tries to make the conversation about Trump. I know I mentioned him, but he's not the topic. The topic is about money that people earn and what type of job you do and the place where you position yourself in the marketplace. But then when I even mention Donald Trump's name, somebody is set off and they leave 50 comments talking about Donald Trump. Gary Gray said you can give a lazy person all kinds of free shit and all it does is enables them to be more lazy. Generally, yes, that's what it does. Dofat said the game is effed up. Once you accept reality, you have choices. Crying to politicians ain't one that will work. Yes, very true. Or accepting politicians giving you the excuse. Politicians will give you the built-in excuse. You only have to come up with it. They will give it to you, and then all you got to do is listen to it. That's what a good politician is very good at that. They give you the things to be mad about, and then they get you excited. All of them do it, on the right and on the left. Casey said the act as if mindset. Directionally, you got that right. Is a little bit more complicated than that, but generally you have it right. You want to assume the mentality and assume the posture. You're not acting. The problem with acting is you got to stop acting. Gary said, give a person the fish, eat for a day. Teach them the fish, they eat for life. That's right. Jewel Greer said, DEI was a paper tiger. I never heard that phrase before, but I get what you're saying. Andrew said, that's not what diversity, equity, and inclusion means, and you know it. Well, it means a whole lot of different things, depending on who's interpreting it. So my interpretation is my interpretation. There's no right or wrong way to look at it. It's how you decide to look at the term. And again, Andrew, you're kind of trying to go down these threads of things that I'm mentioning. They're not the main topic. So if you got something on the main topic, leave a comment on the main topic. Diana, I see you. Good morning. Patty Fisher says, CEO, they don't give a F about us. They're saying all the right stuff to make bank. Well, to win elections is what they're doing. You got to win elections to make bank. If they don't win, they don't get any money. Chelsea said, average millionaire has 7 streams of revenue. I hear that. I hear people say that a lot. I've always heard that for the last 30 years. Thing is, you got to get one strong stream going. Then the other streams become tributaries of the mainstream, or they become byproducts of the mainstream. What happens is, Chelsea, you're not wrong in what you're saying. The issue is people hear that and they think that they got to have 7 different things going at the same time, when actually what you need to do is get one thing going really well, and then you build off other pieces that break off the main thing. So that concept, while accurate, often is misinterpreted by people to mean something that it doesn't really mean. Heck said, this is really depressing. Why? Marky Man says CEOs step down so they don't get fired. Yeah, pretty much. Well, they are getting fired, but they get told, listen, you can save face by stepping down. And if you don't want to save face, if you save face by stepping down, we'll give you $100 million severance and we'll let you keep your stock. And we'll put in a good word for you to get your next job. If you don't step down, we're going to fire you. We're going to take back your stock and we're going to trash you. So it's going to be hard for you to get your next job. So the CEO says, okay, I'll step down. And that's what happens. So most of the time when someone says they're stepping down, it's because they got forced to step down so they didn't get embarrassed by getting fired. You want to see an example of this? Look at former President Joe Biden. 24/7 Keith said, become your own boss if you don't like what you're getting paid. Yeah, that's right. A lot of people don't want to do that because now they have added responsibility and added risk. And what people, instead of saying that, nobody says that. What people say is, well, I don't want to become my own boss because then I got to work 60 hours a week. Okay. Would you rather work 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week for pay that you don't like? I mean, pick a struggle. So a lot of people have a lot of cope for what you said there, 24/7 Keith. I agree with you, but a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to deal with the unspoken challenges that come with that. Brenda Grady, thanks for the share. Jake Giant said, Barry, anyone born today chose the minimum wage. And what does that have to do with anything? Thing is, the minimum wage should be entry level. I heard this guy named Dan Kennedy say this. He said it like 15 years ago. That what people call minimum wage should be called entry level wage. And if they call it the entry level wage, then people will look at it different. If you call it entry level wage, then everyone would understand inherently that it means that's how much money you're supposed to make when you're new. But if you've been in business or been in your career for 10 years, you shouldn't still be making the minimum wage because it's called an entry level wage. So why are you making entry level wage when you've been working in your career for 10 years? It doesn't make any sense. You should have graduated to a higher level of performance and thus commanding a higher salary. But when you call it minimum wage, then anyone can justify, rationalize, subconsciously still earning it, even though they've been working at the same job for 30 years. It doesn't make any sense. So they should change the name from minimum wage to entry level wage. Then everyone would understand that if you're 17 and this is your first job, it makes sense for you to be earning entry level wage. You don't have any responsibilities. You don't have any bills. You only have your own place. You barely even got a car. You ain't responsible for anything. So the money you make is extra. Now, by the time you're 25, you should have graduated to a little bit higher level in your career. Slohan, thanks for the follow. Carmel Paul Prince, thanks for the follow. Lamont Dashield, thanks for the share. C to Bean, thanks for the share. EMW USMC, thanks for the follow. Roy Peace, a great nuggets you shared. Thank you. Kuya Ben, thank you for the lightning bolts. Reboot Life Family Man, thanks for the follow. Richard Ferry said, you give $1 million to every person, it will still end up in the top 1% hands. Yes, eventually it would, because, and the reason why that happens, and I know you're not the first one to say it. I've said it. A lot of people have said that concept. A lot of people don't understand why it's true. The reason why that's true is because if you gave everybody, let's say you took everybody's money away. Let's say nobody had any money, right? Let's take all humans and nobody has any money, right? So we put everybody at zero. Everybody's at zero. You know what would happen? Hold on a second. Okay. If you took everybody down to zero and then gave everybody $1 million, so everyone in the world has exactly $1 million in cash available. What would happen is the people with the rich mindsets would create offers, products, services that other people can spend money to have. And then the other people with their $1 million would spend money to get experiences. They would spend money on items that depreciate in value, such as cars and most jewelry. And their money would slowly diminish, even though they have stuff. Whereas the rich-minded people, they would use their money, if they use any at all, to invest in things that make money. So that they might spend $100,000 building a business. So now they only have $900,000 in their account, but the business is now generating money. And let's say the business generates $20,000 a year. So in 5 years, they're already back to $1 million. And starting in year 6, they're in the black. Now they're profitable. So the rich mindset thinks, how can I use my money to pay for something or invest in something that's going to pay me back in the future? Whereas the poor mindset thinks, how can I use my money to buy something that is not going to pay me back in the future, but it makes me feel good in the present? And that's the difference. It's not the dollar amount. It's the mindset behind the dollar amount. You could be broke. And again, instead, invest in things with your time and effort now, because you don't have any money. Invest in things that will put you into a better situation in the future, such as relationships, such as knowing the right people, such as working in the right place and getting the right information. There's a lot of things you can do even if you don't have cash. And a lot of people who are in poor mindsets have the belief that the only reason I'm poor is because I don't have money. No, you don't have money because you're poor. It's the other way around. And people who are rich, people look at them and say, well, oh, this person, of course they're successful because their parents gave him some money. Of course, Donald Trump's successful. His dad gave him $100 million to start his business or whatever the number is. That's not why he's successful. That is not why. There are plenty of dynasties, financial dynasties, way bigger than the Donald Trump family tree, that lost all the money that the dynasty had, that the money just completely went away. There are several of them. Let me see if I can give you some examples. I'm talking on my TikTok live right now about family dynasties that had a lot of money that over the course of a few generations lost all of it. Give me a few examples of what they were, who started the dynasty, how much money they had, and how much they lost in how many generations. Donald Trump's dynasty, quote unquote, started with his dad. It wasn't anybody before that. There's only second generation. Donald Trump was able to become rich. Here's me talking about Trump because his mindset, not because of the dollar amount that he had. So I'll give you a few. So the Vanderbilts. All right, y'all heard of Vanderbilt University? It's named after this guy. His name is Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt. In the late 1800s, his dynasty, his family was worth $100 million. When he died, Mr. Vanderbilt, his family was worth $100 million. This is in the 1800s. This is one of the richest men in America. Adjusted today, he'd be up there with the tech billionaires. He'd be up there with Elon Musk, adjusted for today. Within 30 years, his wealth had eroded a lot. By 50 years, the entire fortune was gone. 50 years, $100 million gone. That's because of the mindsets of the people who came after him. That's not because they didn't have enough money. The Reichmans, Olympia and York Empire under Samuel, Albert, and Paul Reichman, their wealth at their peak was estimated at $13 billion, the fourth richest family in the world. And then they ventured into a bad business. By 1992, they declared bankruptcy and were $20 billion in debt. Their empire essentially shattered within one generation. Another family called the Florio family. This is in Sicily, in Italy. The founder was a guy named Ignazio Florio Sr. Their assets were valued at $100 million in 1891. Within the next generation, economic shifts and a lavish lifestyle, i.e. spending money on things that don't pay you back, led to bankruptcy. By 1935, they were auctioned off and the family was in poverty. This guy died in 1891. 44 years later, the family was in poverty. It only took 44 years. Donald Trump got money from his dad. He's damn near 80 years old and still got money. All right, that's a mindset thing, folks. Don't be mad at and please don't go into these rabbit holes about Trump. I'm not entertaining those here today. I'm giving you an example because all you know who he is. The Gould family, Jay Gould, infamous Gilded Age, quote unquote, robber baron. He had a massive railroad empire, including multiple major lines. His son was named George J. Gould. He mismanaged the money. The family lost control of all their railroads in one generation. So the son just fumbled the ball, basically. So there's this thing called the Buddenbrooks effect. I never heard of this. It's a pattern. A historian, this guy named Thomas Mann, described how dynasties tend to decline steeply by the third generation due to complacency, mismanagement, or lack of vision. In other words, the head of the dynasty doesn't do a good enough job teaching the people who come after them, how do you maintain what I built? And one of the reasons that happens is because they didn't have to go through the rough stuff to build it. They see the sons and the grandsons didn't have to go through rough things to build anything. They just inherited a bunch of money and they end up fumbling the ball because they weren't taught properly. And again, I'll mention Trump one more time to bait you, is that Trump's dad taught him properly. That's why he didn't fumble the ball. And hopefully Trump is teaching his son properly so his son doesn't fumble the ball. Well, he got more than one son. All his sons don't fumble the ball. So let's continue. Where was I? So Richard Ferry, good point. Well, heck says, depressing because the gap is growing. I would like to see some profits going to workers. Well, heck, your positioning here is a little bit inaccurate. If you want profits, you have to make some type of investment. The workers have to make an investment. Now, there are some companies out there that offer ownership to the staff, that maybe after a certain amount of time working, or you take a certain amount of your paycheck and defer it or buy into something, you get ownership of the company so that now you're partly an owner and you're a worker. So you can own shares in the company and you work at the company. Some companies do that, but you got to put something in. You got to put something on the table. If you want to receive a profit, then you have to make some form of investment. And just going to work in exchange for a paycheck, you're getting what you accepted. They say we'll pay you this much for working. And if that's what you accept, that's what you get. Now, if you want something other than that, somehow, some way, first of all, you got to ask the question, how do I get this? And then ask, how can I make this work? And maybe go to the people who have control over it and ask them, how can we make this work out? So I get what you're saying. You want to see some profits going to the workers, but the workers are getting what they accepted, which is a paycheck. That's the way it works. Family Man said, our biggest problem is worrying about other people money and don't find you're happy beyond just money. That is a problem. I agree with you. Renee said, entry level wage, brilliant. Well, I wish I came up with it, but I didn't. Blessings of God. Thanks for the follow. Brandy says, it's just not a rich mindset. It's also they have more opportunities. What do you mean by that, Brandy? Elaborate, please. Niece said, Anderson Cooper, his mother was a Vanderbilt. I didn't know that. Okay. Jenna Neal said, Vanderbilt is a great example that one is fascinating if you compare it to others at the same time. Yeah, there were many others, but the many others are still rich. Stu, thanks for the follow. Family Man said, even if you give $1 million to each person, population 340 million still wouldn't be $500 million. Yeah, well, that $500 million is $500 million that some people have or know of having money is paper money. It's not actual money. Not paper, but paper assets, excuse me. Vante said, you're talking about employee stock ownership program companies. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Employee stock ownership companies. Let's see if we can find out how they work. Tell me about companies that allow employees to own stocks and how they are structured and what those employees need to do to get ownership and why all companies don't do this. Marky Man said, was it Howard Stern to give $30K to a homeless man who bought a guitar? I don't know anything about that. I never heard that story, but it'd be interesting if that was the case. So here's a breakdown of employee stock ownership. This is what I was referring to. Heck mentioned this, and then Avante gave the title of it. So this means workers owning shares of a company that they work for, which I said. Now, there are several forms. One is the employee stock ownership plan. This is mostly in America. Now, there's also a thing called restricted stock units. This happens in tech companies, usually because they're relatively new and their valuations can fluctuate. Then you have co-ops and worker-owned companies. This is when there's full or partial ownership via membership. In other words, the workers basically own the whole company. So how it is structured. So in the ESOP, employee stock ownership, these are mid to large private companies. A trust is set up by the company. The trust buys shares on behalf of the employees, and employees earn shares over time. So first of all, you got to put some time in. So this is called vesting. Your shares get earned over time. The more you work, the more shares you get. Typically, it's 3 to 6 years. The payout is that the employees don't buy the shares. They get shares based on the time that they work, and then they can cash them out when they leave or when they retire. So basically, you keep owning stock for as long as you work there, and your stock value goes up as long as you keep working there. And then when you retire or you leave the company, you can sell your stock if you want to. I guess you also have the option of holding on to it. So there are companies like Winco Foods, WL Gore and Associates, Publix, which is a grocery store that's big down here in the South. I live in Miami, Florida. So down here in the South, Publix is a company that has an ESOP program. So the longer you work there, the more you start to own shares. Think the companies, and these are private companies, by the way, not public companies. So stock options is when you have a right to buy shares at a fixed price. So they'll just sell you shares. And the shares get granted. Also, you can get shares granted over time without buying them. Vesting is often a 4-year schedule. You can sell once it's vested. In other words, you can sell your shares while you still work there. Google does this. Meta does it. Amazon does it. Apple does it. So they all do this. So this is the reason why you may see people working in the Apple store for years. They get shares of Apple. And Apple stock is a good stock to buy. Not financial advice, but I did say it. Most tech startups offer stock options instead of high salaries early on. So a tech startup might not have a lot of cash to give you for a job, but they'll say, listen, Mike, you're working here at this company called Facebook. This company is going to take off in the next 20 years. So what we'll do is give you some stock instead of giving you money. Instead of giving you $150 a year, which I know is what you want, we can only pay you $70, but we'll give you some stock in the company. And if this company goes up like we think it will, this stock is going to be worth way more than the $80,000 that we're not giving you. And if they're right, you make a ton of money. So you're gambling because the company goes to zero. You just missed out on $80,000. But if the company blows up, you get rich. So it's a gamble. And again, this is what entrepreneurship is. So heck, to respond to what you were saying, if you want these profits, you got to be willing to take a risk. Either risking your money, risking the money that you're not getting. There's something you got to put on the table. This is what it is. And then there's worker co-ops. So one person, one share, one vote. So employees get to buy into ownership at a low cost. And there are companies like Equal Exchange, that's a coffee company, never heard of them. New Belgium Brewing, a beer company that got sold. And then Co-op Home Care Associates in New York They all have this set up. So to get ownership, you just got to work there, stay long enough, and you get money. There's a stock option offer. Then you got to stay employed through vesting periods. So this is sometimes why people keep their jobs so they can get their stock. And all companies don't do it because you lose control, because founders and owners don't want to give up equity in their company. They don't want to give up voting rights, and they don't want to give up board seats. So sometimes the people who started the company, they don't want to give up shares of their own company to their employees because they lose power. And some people may not like that. And I say, so what? If the person who started the company doesn't want to give up power to their staff, they don't have to. And if the staff says, hey, we won't work here unless you give us some power, and he can say, okay, I'll replace you because you're easily replaceable. People who start companies are not as easily replaceable as people who work at companies. This is the reality of the power dynamics, everybody. This is what everyone needs to accept. So ESOPs and option plans are legally and financially complicated to set up and administer. There's a lot of paperwork and red tape. Short-term thinking. Some leaders are focused on fast profits or fast exits, not long-term culture and legacy. So a lot of people start companies just trying to sell them quickly and make money quickly. So they don't care about the long-term. Let's build the company with employees having ownership mindsets. Incentives are misaligned. Some owners believe employees won't act like owners even if they have shares, and they're right. And cash flow. ESOPs require the company to buy shares back when employees leave, and that can create a cash strain. So let's say an employee leaves and they sell their shares, and now you got to get them $10,000. You don't want to give up the $10,000. So you won't even put an ESOP in place so that you don't have to do that. So why companies offer ownership? For loyalty, retention, performance, succession, tax benefits. So that's how that works when companies decide to do that. But it's a lot of red tape. It is a lot of work to put that stuff in place. Family Man said, do you think the credit score reporting companies are fair to common level people? Generally, no. I'm not even a fan of the whole concept of the credit score reporting companies because they don't give you but they don't give you a clear parameters of what you can do. Like all of you know, if you know or follow credit scores, you know that you could pay off everything and then your credit score doesn't even go up that high, or you could pay a bill and then your credit score goes down and you're like, what the hell? There's no clear, the formula is not clear. The formula is kind of ambiguous as to how exactly do I get my score to go up? Do I do this? Do I do that? And then you got the credit repair people who tell you, here's how I'll help you. Generally, if you do well with paying off your stuff, your score goes up. Generally, that is true. But it doesn't always work exactly like that. You'll pay a bill and then the score goes down. You're like, how the hell my score go down? I just paid the bill. So generally, no, family man. I don't think it does well to anybody. Forget the common level person, any person. I think there should be other ways of somebody, securing, whether you want a loan, you want to buy a car, a house, anything other than just the credit score companies. Marky Man said Home Depot does it. They got the stock option. Okay. You're welcome. Jenna said risk. I don't like to take risks. You risk your money, you risk your time, sometimes both. Yes, exactly. That's what entrepreneurship is. You got to take on a risk. Please keep liking the live, everybody. I didn't tell you to like the live today. We had 67,000. Jenna says, depends on when you pay it off. It will jump depending on how much you pay off. Yeah, but it changes. The story keeps changing with the credit score, and different companies have different numbers. They're looking at different things. They get reported to in different ways. It's kind of tricky. There are people who are out there, they study this stuff and they do it for a living. Generally, if you pay your stuff off, your score goes up. But it's not it's not very clear. Do this and you get exactly that. It should be like that. Like if you do this, this, and this, and you pay this much, your score's going to go from this number to this number. If it was that black and white, then I would say it's fair. But it's not black and white. That's what I don't like about it. Please keep liking live, everybody. We do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Usually no later than 10 a.m. is the longest that I go. This one probably is not going to go to 10 o'clock. I'll take a couple more questions, then we'll wrap this up. While it is Friday, I'll tell you what we have coming on the docket. Let's see. We are going to talk about... There was this false assault allegation that happened in Canada with some hockey players. Did y'all hear about that one? These hockey players who got false accused of assault of a woman. I might get into that one. We may talk about Donald Trump. May do a whole topic on Donald Trump. Why not? He's a gift that keeps on giving. We may get around to talking about Joe Biden's doctors refusing to testify. That one I might do that one tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see what's happening in the news. What exactly I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I just got to look and see what are the topics that are being discussed so I can decide which ones I want to dive into the most. Let's see. Sometimes I asked Grok this question a couple of times. It wasn't that good on it. Give me the top 5 trending news topics happening in the United States of America today that are things that the average person who understands the news on a surface level would know about or care about. So let's see what Grok says. I usually don't ask Grok for this information. I just find things that I like, but let's see what Grok says. I've asked it a couple of times. I didn't really like what it was saying. So this is what Grok says. It says Trump has new tariffs taking effect. I already talked about the tariffs last week, so that's not going to be it. There is a chikungunya outbreak. Y'all heard of this? Chikungunya? Chikungunya. The CDC is issuing a travel advisory to the C country due to an outbreak of this virus is a mosquito-borne illness causing joint pain and fever. This could catch the attention of anyone planning international travel. No, I'm not talking about that. So there was an active person with a weapon at Fort Stewart, Georgia. A sergeant injured 5 soldiers. It was a lockdown, heightened public concern, focused on safety in military communities. Nah, I don't like that one. Ultra-processed foods and diet. So a new federal report revealed that over 50% of calories consumed by U.S. adults and children come from ultra-processed foods. That one is interesting, like fast food and packaged goods. All of y'all know that fast food and packaged goods are not good for you, right? Everybody know that? If your food comes in a box or a bag or a package, it's probably not good for you. All right, so anyway, there's a new federal report that reveals 50% of calories consumed come from that stuff. That's revealing. I thought we've been knowing that for the last 40 years. But this is what it says. And then there's this Texas Democrat situation. Actually, I might talk about that one. I might do this Texas situation where they're fighting over the redistricting and the Democrats won't come to the vote. And there's this whole back and forth and everybody's actually, that's a story I should talk about. That Texas Democrat redistricting protest might be my topic here tomorrow. I got to get more information, but we'll see. That one might be my one. That Texas situation, because of course you got the politicians from Texas talking about it, but then you got people who are not from Texas. I saw Barack Obama jumped in. He jumped in with his 2 cents. So everybody has something to say about that one. So maybe. No, tomorrow is Friday, Sonia. I'm talking about tomorrow's Friday. Jenna said, what is this? Brock? What's Brock? Sonia said, Sonia, I can't say that name. I can't say that sentence that you just said. That'll get me suspended again. Cece said, yes, Texas, please. Yeah, I might do the Texas one because that's a big one. Actually, that people been talking about that one all week. So I forgot about that one. So that one I'm probably going to do tomorrow. Probably. Don't hold me to that because if anything crazier, bigger than that happens today, then I'll talk about that tomorrow. Because sometimes things just happen overnight. Something happens overnight and tomorrow morning, that's the big story. Then we'll talk about that. So it just depends on what happens. No, Sonia's fine. You can say it. You can say it in the comments. I can't. That sentence that you just said, I can't say. You know I'm on TikTok, right? You got to be careful what you say on TikTok. And it's funny because I've been suspended 15 times, but I'm live on all these platforms at the same time. The only one that even gave me a warning about anything is TikTok. Nobody else says anything. So that's to tell you all something. So anyway, everybody, we're going to wrap this one up. Live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. If you like this one, be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. You want to work with me directly, go to workonyourgame.com, workonyourgameuniversity.com, or just click the links in my profile. We will send you to all our stuff. We got a program called the Power Presence Protocol starting on August 19th. There's going to be 6 straight weeks of training on your presence, energy, aura, how you walk into a room, how you carry yourself, and how you get other people to respond to you. It is made with men in mind, but if you're a lady and you want to take it, you can get into the program as well. Starting August 19th, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com/power, or just send me a DM. My executive assistant, her name is Marielle. She will get back to you with a link to how you can get into the program. We explain it very simply, make it easy for all y'all to get in. I will see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. Also, we got our Circle group coaching program. You want to get into our group program or work with me one-on-one, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. I'll see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Work on your game. We out of here.